Germans laughed at them. Obsolete, they called them. Just old 6-inch guns on a British cruiser. But when the battle came, those very guns would help sink one of Nazi Germany's most feared battleships. How could something so underestimated change the course of a naval engagement and rewrite the rules of naval warfare? In the next 30 minutes, you'll see a story of fire, ice, and sheer ingenuity that the enemy never saw coming. December 1943. Temperatures plunge below 20 degrees Celsius. The Arctic wind cuts through steel decks like a knife. Across these icy waters, a shadow moves, the German battleship Scharnhorst. A symbol of Nazi naval might armed to the teeth, boasting armor and guns that could strike fear into any Allied sailor. But the Royal Navy had a plan. A fleet assembled not just of battleships, but light cruisers and destroyers vessels often dismissed as lesser ships. Among them was HMS Belfast, a relatively modest light cruiser, armed with 12 6-inch guns. Germans had already mocked these guns as outdated, incapable of matching their own heavy armaments. Yet the stakes were enormous. Scharnhorst was tasked with breaking Allied Arctic convoys, carrying vital supplies to the Soviet Union. Every convoy she sank would be a lifeline, lost every Allied sailor exposed. This wasn't just a naval engagement. It was a fight to keep a continent supplied and the Eastern Front alive. On board Belfast, Lieutenant Commander William Thompson. The gunnery officer checked his instruments repeatedly. Every dial, every bearing, every chart mattered. The crew had trained for this moment, firing 6-inch shells hundreds of times in drills, but nothing could prepare them for the Arctic darkness and the sheer ferocity of a German battleship. The sailors were mostly young men, some barely 20 frozen fingertips gripping cold steel. Rumor had it that the Germans thought their guns were scraps. A cruel joke whispered among Nazi officers, "They can't even hit the water." But the men of Belfast had their own confidence, born from training, experience, and perhaps something less tangible, sheer stubbornness. And let's be honest, if someone called your work obsolete, wouldn't you be itching to prove them wrong? The Royal Navy certainly was. The 6-inch gun was considered light compared to battleship main armaments. Its shells weighed just under 112 pounds. But what it lacked in size, it made up for in rate of fire. And accuracy. A trained crew could fire up to 8 rounds per minute. And when paired with radar-controlled fire direction, these guns became more deadly than the enemy expected. Belfast's fire control system was advanced for its time. Radar could detect targets beyond visual range even through Arctic fog and darkness. The combination of speed, precision, and coordination meant that these obsolete guns could in practice perform feats that German commanders did not anticipate. From the deck of Scharnhorst, German officers observed the British formation. "The light cruisers are harmless," they muttered. "Focus on the battleships." But the Germans underestimated something crucial: the coordinated firepower of multiple ships, including Belfast's 6-inch battery, combined with radar-directed tracking. It was a classic psychological trap. The enemy mocks you, and in doing so, they lower their guard. Fear and hubris are powerful weapons, sometimes even more potent than armor-piercing shells. 26th December 1943. Arctic darkness covers the Barents Sea. The Royal Navy moves into position. Belfast's radar operators detect Scharnhorst before visual contact. Every sailor on board knows this could be their last battle. The Germans believe they are evading the Allies, confident in the ship's speed up to 32 knots, one of the fastest battleships afloat. But they don't know that the British cruisers, though smaller, are nimble, and their radar gives them the edge. The tension is unbearable. One misstep, one miscalculation in these icy waters, and a battleship could destroy them all. Yet the 6-inch guns are ready. At 10,000 yards, Belfast opens fire. The first salvo is precise high-explosive rounds designed to illuminate the target and interfere with the German gunnery. Scharnhorst's radar picks up splashes, but it cannot distinguish between a battleship and coordinated cruiser fire. Aboard the German ship, officers shout orders over the chaos. Target the bigger threat. Ignore the light cruisers. But the constant barrage from 6-inch shells begins to chip away at confidence. Every missed shell, every splash that lands closer than expected, gnaws at nerves. Meanwhile, on Belfast, Thompson monitors the trajectory. Adjust. Fire. Adjust. Fire. 8 rounds per minute. Each one, precise each one, slowly corroding the German crew's perception of invincibility. Fear and confusion are as deadly as shells. German sailors see splashes everywhere, can't track the source, and hear the eerie echo of rapid-firing guns in Arctic night. Some reportedly whispered that radar must be a witch's invention. Others, younger men, felt their stomachs tighten with the realization that their supposed superiority was being systematically dismantled. It's a moment of urgency and suspense. Will Scharnhorst survive? Can Belfast's obsolete guns make the difference? The answer is still uncertain. Until the destroyers enter the fray, torpedoes launched, rounding out the coordinated attack. As the German ship turns to evade torpedoes, Belfast continues firing. The 6-inch shells may not penetrate the main armor of Scharnhorst, but they destroy radar, damage secondary batteries, and keep the enemy off balance. Every salvo matters. Destroyers, closing in, launch torpedoes. In combination with the cruiser's fire, they create an inescapable net. German crew morale plummets. Temperatures plunge to 30. Engines and equipment creak under the cold. And now panic begins to set in. One officer later wrote in his diary, "We were being picked apart by a force we had underestimated. Even the light guns seemed to anticipate our every move." And this is exactly where the 6-inch guns show their true value. Not in sheer destructive power alone, but in control, distraction, and coordination. After hours of engagement, Scharnhorst is overwhelmed. Multiple torpedo hits and constant gunfire leave her crippled. She sinks into the icy waters of the Barents Sea. Out of nearly 1968 men, only 36 survive. The 6-inch guns of Belfast, once dismissed as obsolete, had played a crucial role in this victory. By illuminating targets, disrupting radar, and creating continuous pressure, they contributed to one of the most significant naval victories for the Royal Navy in World War II. This battle teaches a timeless lesson. Never underestimate the tools or people you mock. Precision, coordination, and ingenuity often outweigh raw power. A seemingly modest weapon, in the right hands and used cleverly, can reshape outcomes that history thought were already written. For the men of Belfast, the victory was not just tactical, it was deeply personal. Every sailor who had braved the Arctic night, every gunner who trained relentlessly, had proven that courage and skill could defy expectations. And for the Germans, the lesson was brutal. Arrogance can blind even the most powerful forces. So next time someone dismisses a small weapon, an overlooked tool, or a minor participant, remember HMS Belfast. Remember the icy Arctic night. Remember 12 6-inch guns that refused to be ignored. History is full of surprises. And sometimes, the most underestimated elements are the ones that change everything. If you thought this was incredible, you haven't heard the story of the night radar and torpedo coordination that made the Royal Navy almost unstoppable. That, too, is a tale of underestimated genius. Subscribe, because in our next video, we'll dive even deeper into battles where the Germans thought they had victory in hand, only to be outsmarted by what they called obsolete technology.